Happy Sunday, everyone. Let me get my camera angle a little bit better here. I seem to be a little bit crooked this morning, but that's okay. It is Sunday and it is January 9th, 2022. And if you haven't had a birthday already this year, you will have. So let's make sure that even though we're doing keto, we know how to make a birthday cake. So that's what we're doing this morning. Now I am going to grab an apron. Have you noticed that I've been forgetting that lately? And usually it's because I am so busy in the morning. No, you know what? That's an excuse. I've been forgetting because I've been forgetting. Something that I have figured out is that over the Christmas season, when I was doing so many markets, I actually got really tired. And I had no idea at that time how tired I was. And I have been enjoying a little bit of time off more than I can even tell you. And I decided, two reasons we're doing the birthday cake today. We are not having a birthday in our house. However, we have been invited to some dear friends invited us for supper today, and so we are doing that. And then also Dell is home, and he's been telling me that he really would like some cake. So we are making cake today, which means we're going to be using the mixer, and so hopefully we can make that not so loud. Hopefully we can make that not so loud. Okay, so first thing we are going to do is hopefully show you the cupboard. Just let me, one of these days, I am going to be organized and we're going to get together and you guys are actually going to get to see what's going on here. Now, I have my mixer set up here. This is going to be a little bit noisy today, so I think maybe what I'll do, since I have a production crew here today, is I will move this a little bit so that the noise is a little further away from the microphone, and hopefully that'll help us out. So first things first, we are going to add 168 grams of butter right after I have a sip of coffee. Do you have a hot cup of coffee with you this morning? Because if you don't, I highly encourage you to get one, because I'm going to spend the next minute or so cutting up butter. So by all means, fill your cup. I have, what do I have in here this morning? Sugar-free buttered rum syrup. There is no rum in my coffee. It's just a sugar-free buttered rum flavored syrup. Way too early in my day to be drinking rum. Actually, any time of day for the most part. Okay, so we are going to, now let me move this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing here. We're going to get 3/4 of a cup, or 168 grams of butter, into the mixer. Now I've been letting this soften a little bit, and my knife is right here. And we're just going to cut this up in chunks because we need to cream this with our sweetener. So we're just going to kind of cut it up in rough chunks, and that will make it a little easier to cream the sweetener into it. It isn't warm, but you don't want it too warm. Okay, so just like that, it does not have to be perfect. And if you are using a sharp knife, which I highly suggest you do to cut this or anything else up. Now I am going to move this over here a little bit more so that we can hang out together with me without me having to bounce back and forth. Okay, so there is one bit of butter. Now we'll do the other bit. So did you know that if you buy sticks of butter, one stick should be 112 grams, give or take half a gram. So we are using 1.5 sticks of butter, or 3/4 of a cup, or you can measure it however you like. Now I'm just going to scrape this off because everything is better with butter and we don't want to be wasting it. So we're going to chop this last piece up and we're going to put it in the mixer. Now this isn't chopped up quite as much as the other was, but that's okay. It will be just fine. And get that butter off my hands. Okay, now here's the noisy part, and I was kind of hoping to avoid this and have this part done before you got here, but I didn't. So we are going to cream our butter and our sugar together in the mixer for about 8 minutes. I know, that's a long time, right? Okay, well, it's not too bad. Can you still hear me? I think so. All right, so that is 1 cup, and I have things falling all over the place here. Oh my goodness. If it is not one thing, it's another. Okay, so we have 168 grams of butter and 200 grams of granular erythritol. And it's important for this recipe that it's granular. So you don't have to rush out and buy the powdered stuff. So we want to get it in there, and then we're going to turn it up 1 more notch. And we're going to get this cream together. Having your sweetener and your butter cream together is incredibly important because it's going to make this cake nice and fluffy and lovely. Now there's still a little bit of sweetener in there, so we're just going to get that in there, and we will get rid of that. Now, you can either put this in a 9x12 cake pan, or you can put it in 2 round cake pans. So I am going to put it in 2 round ones. Now, one of them is a tart pan, but it's going to work fine, and the other one is a round cake pan. So I'm just going to get those over here, and we're going to get them ready. Now, while we're waiting for this to cream, we are going to get our dry ingredients ready. Now, our dry ingredients, 168 grams of almond flour. I need more coffee. I need more coffee. This is a coffee kind of day. And I'm not exactly sure why, because the weather is actually changing and warming up a little bit. So shouldn't be a coffee kind of day as much. Okay, so we have 168 grams of almond flour, 52 grams of coconut flour. Coconut flour is important in this recipe. Do not substitute more almond flour. The recipe is not going to work. The coconut flour helps absorb some of the moisture from the milk and the eggs, and this recipe, I want to say thank you to Big Man's World for posting this recipe, because without him, we wouldn't be doing this morning. Okay, so we have our coconut flour, we have our almond flour. We're going to add, if I can find it, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And just a pinch of salt. So about a 1/4 teaspoon. And now that we've got all of our dry ingredients in there, we're going to mix this up. We want to make sure this is well incorporated. We don't want a bite of anything other than cake. So we want to make sure that our coconut flour is well incorporated, that our baking powder is well incorporated. You don't want a salty bite. So we'll get this all put together. A few lumps is okay. Now let's see how our butter and sugar is looking pretty good. We're going to turn it up just a hair. And I think at this point we're going to add our vanilla. So you do want to let this cream for at least 3 or 4 minutes. If you can do it for 6 or 8, that's even better. Oh, it smells wonderful. As soon as the vanilla goes in, it starts smelling amazing. Now, Next things. Yeah, that is looking lovely. Okay, now I'm going to give you a break from that for a minute. So next we're going to add 4 eggs. Now I'm going to turn this back on for a second. But before I do that, I'm going to put in half a cup of almond milk. You can use coconut milk if you like. Now remember, if you use coconut milk, you're going to have the coconut flour and the coconut milk. It's going to give you more of a coconut flavor. And if that's what you're going for, that's awesome. If it's not what you're going for, then you want to make sure that you're using an almond milk. So we're going to add that in there. Now, something that I know I've said this to you guys lots of times. Good morning, Mom. Make sure when you are buying coconut milk or almond milk, any kind of nut milk, that you are checking to make sure that it is unsweetened. Original does not mean unsweetened. So that's important to remember, because if it's sweetened, I guarantee you it is not sweetened with a keto-friendly sweetener. Okay, we're going to turn this back on, and we're going to add 1 egg at a time. Now, crack your eggs into a bowl, because if you drop a shell and there's 1 egg and it's in a bowl, you can get that little piece of shell out very easily. So one at a time. We'll maybe turn this up just a wee bit. Okay. And that's 3, and we'll add, whoa, almost added 1 dish to the recipe. Now, if you don't have a stand mixer at home, you can still do this. Just use your hand mixer. That'll work just as well. Okay. Now we've got all 4 eggs in there, and we have our almond milk in there. We're going to shut this down for just a minute. Scrape all the butter off the sides, because it likes to stick, and it isn't going to come off just because we add the almond flour and the coconut flour and all the other stuff. So make sure that your bowl is scraped down properly, and then we'll get it going again. Now, one thing to remember about this recipe, now if you were using regular flour, remember back in the day when we used, I'm going to put this over here even a little bit more, there we go. Back in the day when we were using just regular flour, you didn't want it really smooth, and you still don't, but because of the way the erythritol works with the butter, and the fact that it wasn't really warm, and you don't want it to be, you do need to make sure that you give it time to incorporate. And there's an easy way to do it. Do a taste test. If it's tasting sweet like cake, you got it. If it isn't sweet like cake, then yet it still needs to mix a little bit more. Okay. Now we are going to add our dry ingredients. Dump it in all at once. About 3 or 4 goes at it, and it'll have it all incorporated. And again, scrape your sides down, because you're going to have a little bit of flour and a little bit of stuff. You want to make sure that everything is mixed well. And I dumped some on top of my paddle, so I'm getting that down in there. Okay, now we're just going to leave this mix for a minute. Now, the 2 pans that I have a round cake pan, a silicone one, and I have a tart pan. Either one of these is going to work, and I'm going to use both of them. So, the cakes are not going to be terribly, terribly high, but they are going to be delicious. And I don't want them high, because we don't need a great big huge piece of cake. Well, I might maybe like a big huge piece of cake, but it wouldn't do me any favors. So give this a good whip, and then okay, taste test. That is so good. Okay, so now we have our cake batter done, and we do not have our pans ready, but that's okay because we're going to get them ready. And I'm going to cheat today. I am going to use an aerosol olive oil. Now, I don't usually do this. I would use coconut oil, but I know that coconut oil can leave a coconut flavor, and Dell wants this cake and he does not like coconut. So the fact that I have coconut flour in there, I think is probably pushing my luck enough. Okay, now we're going to, we're going to get this paddle out of here somehow. There we go. Now we have this beautiful cake batter, and we don't want to waste any of it, so we're going to take it off the paddle. So what is your favorite flavor of cake? You know, I was just saying to Dell a little bit ago, I'm going to have to start looking for different types of cakes, because I do have people that have birthdays coming up. When I was a kid, every year on our birthdays, our mom would say, what kind of cake would you like for your birthday? And my brother always had the same answer. He wanted angel food cake. I've never quite understood that because I'm not a fan of angel food cake, but he definitely was. So maybe that's one that I need to figure out, because I definitely love my little brother very much, and he has a birthday coming up this month. So maybe that needs to be my first cake adventure, is figuring that out. Okay, now you can see that this batter looks quite dense, and you know, it's important to remember that this is a keto cake. This is not a garbage cake. This is a keto cake. So this cake is going to be a lot denser than a normal cake is going to be. For the most part, that's true. Anything that is made with almond flour, coconut flour, is going to be more like a pound cake than it is like a normal cake that we used to have, the garbage cakes. Garbage is one of my favorite words that I use when I'm talking to clients, and I want to tell you guys a story. I have a client that I work with that I am just so proud of right now, because I've been working with this person for several months now, and another success story where type 2 diabetes is no longer a thing. So it is not just me, it is not just one or two people, it is anybody who wants to do the work. And it's not just diabetes, it is coronary artery disease, it is irritable bowel syndrome, it is so many things that we just treat as a normal part of aging, and it isn't, or it shouldn't be. So if you are battling with something that you didn't used to have, autoimmune diseases, You know, people treat autoimmune diseases like it's something that just happens to them and it's something that they can't do anything about. And that is absolutely not the truth. It just isn't. Okay, now we are going to, we are going to set that there. Now you're going to have to watch for a picture because this cake is not going to be ready, but I will show you a picture when it's done. And I do have one in the oven, but note to self, if you put this all in one cake pan, and I don't think I have this divided up very well, so I will fix that. If you put this all in one cake pan, it is going to take a lot longer to bake. So if you're wanting it done in half an hour, you want to make sure that you divide it into 2 cake pans. And I am going to put some more of this over here. And that's going to make it bake a lot faster, which means you'll have it cooling faster, which means you will have it ready for whatever occasion you're having it for. And this one is because I love my husband. How about that? Is that good enough? Is that mushy enough? You know, our anniversary is December 31st, and then Valentine's Day is December 14th. So I get to spend like a whole month and a half being all mushy and gushy. So that's just how I roll. So I hope that's how you work in your world too. Well, not being in love with my husband necessarily, but find something that makes you happy. Find something that just gives you warm fuzzies and concentrate on that. Because wintertime, especially the way as crazy as our world has gotten in the last little while, needs to be a time when we are taking care of ourselves and making sure that we're remembering the things in our life that are important and are loving and lovely, and you know, family, friends, your spouse, your children, yeah, whatever that is. Okay, these are ready to go in the oven. They're going to be in the oven for about half an hour. So that's going to make it about 11 o'clock. I'm going to have to cool them, and I'm going to put a delicious cream cheese icing on them, and they will be ready to go to our dinner this afternoon. I hope all of you have an amazing Sunday, and I hope that you do your very best to live your best version of this shining life. And look at me just bopping around all over the place. Thank you very much for joining me. Go make cake, and only eat a little bit, because this is not something that you want to be eating a lot of. I say it all the time, and I'm going to say it again. Keto is the perfect way to nourish a human body. It is not a weight loss diet unless you do it right. Then it can be. And after you're done losing the weight, then it just is the best way to eat. The best way to help reverse or prevent all kinds of chronic illnesses that, for whatever reason in our society, we just talk about as something that happens when you get older. And it's true. They are things that happen when you get older if you don't eat right. So keep that in mind. Have an amazing Sunday and an amazing next week until I see you Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. Mountain. I'm looking forward